People keep saying the hands-off protests were so peaceful, like that's some kind of surprise. But if you're white like me, you need to think about what actually made that possible. White people, you really need to sit with this. The protests were peaceful because we were the ones in the streets.
So you're hearing that the hands-off April 5th protests yesterday were so peaceful and everything was great and there was like no violence, no escalation, and that it was also predominantly white people, predominantly white women. Here's the thing. Here's the really important point. It is not that the people who were in attendance yesterday, right, the predominantly white people, the predominantly white women, are inherently more peaceful and law-abiding, and they just know how to do it, right? That's not the reality, okay? It is because they were met with a different level of force, being none, like a lack thereof, as opposed to when movements are predominantly about and backed up by people of color, right? Queer people, especially black people, especially black women. They are met with a different level of force, not only by police, but by like random conservative militia groups that were showing up every single day at the BLM protests. Like, there is a stark difference, not in the way in which the protesters are protesting, but a stark difference in the way in which power and force and violence, especially state-sanctioned, is responding to the protests themselves. That has to be a very, very important distinction that we make, because this is not a failing of other movements. This is a failing of our police presence, of the militias, of the power and force and force therein. Ultimately, who gets to protest peacefully and who gets met with extreme and violent force is not due to the protesters themselves. It is far more a reflection of power and control rooted in racism. And it's horrific. And yesterday we saw the stark contrast between what it looks like to be a white body versus what it looks like to be a black body in places, in public spaces where you are allowed to protest and talk about your humanity and your rights. We saw a difference. And again, it's not because of the protesters. It's because of the force in which they were met.
Black, brown, and indigenous folks stayed home, not because they don't care, but for two reasons. One, it's not safe for them to show up. Two, it's not their problem to fix. We've all seen what happens when marginalized people show up in big numbers. Suddenly, it's tear gas, rubber bullets, arrest, and just straight up violence. So yeah, the protests were peaceful, but it wasn't because the system listened better. It's because whiteness made it safe for us to show up. And while we're naming things, let's be real. White people put 45 in office, not black voters, not brown voters, not indigenous voters, us. We built this system. We keep it running, and too many white folks are still clinging to it out of comfort, denial, or fear of giving up power. So if you're white and feeling proud that the protests were peaceful, cool. But ask yourself, what are you doing with that safety your skin gives you? Are you showing up when it matters most, or just when it's comfortable? Because this fight, this is our fight, not just in solidarity, but in accountability. 45 is a white problem. The system is a white problem, and it's on us to dismantle it.
You need to stop You need to stop kidnapping people off the street.
It's scary. It is scary to see. I was passing Home Depot. I saw what appeared to be two men tied up, with ICE agents.
Stop! You guys are kidnapping people off the street.
I walked up to the agents and asked what they were doing, if they were just arresting workers. I was told that other people's criminal history is not my business. When masked, armed, unidentified gunmen are standing in the parking lot of our local shopping centers, this is not how we lawfully and ethically enforce our laws. I won't be silenced. I will continue to speak up. We all need to continue to speak up.
A white woman loses her job over a viral post of her speaking against racism on black people when she called out a racist client.
Today I was fired for speaking out against racism. If any of you saw my video where I was talking about firing a racist client, then you know what I'm talking about.
So this is the video that she got fired for.
Okay. Recently fired a client for being a hateful, racist biatch. It was my second time doing her hair. And for some reason she said that she had lived in Section 8 housing when she was a kid. And I was like, oh, I actually did too. Yeah, it was a crazy experience depending on the day. And that's all I said. She decides to take it in a whole different direction. She goes, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like these days. When I was a kid, we didn't have the blacks coming in with their drugs and their violence and da-da-da-da. And I was like, I know this woman does not think that I am on her side. I don't know what about me says I am that kind of white. I just breathed for a couple seconds and took in what she just said. And then after I got my eyeballs put back into my head, I said, I mean, I don't know. I lived in so-and-so town, a town filled with mostly white people. And there was meth all up and down that town. So I don't know what that's about. She was just quiet for a second. And then she starts trying to backtrack, you know. Thankfully, we were almost done with her appointment anyway. Made her pay me and sent her on her way. You know, I've been thinking about it. Like, that just disgusted me. I mean, obviously, for so many reasons. But I also have personal things that just really struck a nerve with me. So I decided to send her a text firing her. I sent that, make sure it said delivered, and then I immediately blocked her. This wasn't about to be a conversation. We weren't going back and forth. I don't give a damn what you have to say. Part of me was kind of glad, I mean, not glad that she thinks that way and said it, but glad that she did say it to me, because I am willing to check her. Not that I think I'm going to change her mind or anything at all, but maybe, just maybe, she'll think twice before she says some shit like that again.
Here's her explaining why their excuses of firing her for that video.
Now, the day I posted that video, it had already started going off, getting a lot of traction. The day after, I get a text from my boss. Hey, can we have lunch in a couple days? Sure. I didn't think anything of it. I was not at all prepared for this lunch to be about the video. Come to this lunch, we're talking chit-chatting like normal. I'm thinking nothing's wrong. Then she goes, we need to talk about this video. Okay. It seems really unprofessional. It's bringing a lot of drama to the workplace. It's very aggressive. It doesn't bring a good look to the salon. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, I'm sorry. I didn't know there was an issue considering this was almost a year old. And I never once mentioned the salon. I never put any client information out. I'm not understanding what the problem is right now, especially when I'm speaking out against a racist client. I was told it was the way it was done and that I made a video because I'm someone that I'm going to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. I'm not a performative progressive. If something bad happens, I'm going to speak about it because that is what an activist does. That's what somebody that truly wants to make a difference in this world does. You speak out against things, you don't cower to it and want to appease everybody. And unfortunately, this is the price you pay when you don't want to follow suit and be a yes man. I'm not going to apologize about that. I'm not going to feel bad for how I responded because as far as I'm concerned, I was made highly uncomfortable by that client choosing to be racist to me as though I was going to accept that kind of behavior. I am sorry that other clients have heard me telling this story in the salon and they're apparently so uncomfortable with me talking about firing a racist client that they had to go and complain. Other stylists apparently said that they were tired of me talking about it. God forbid I talk about something other than, you know, one of the stylists there talks about sucking dick. And that's fine. That's perfectly professional. And me and my clients, when our jaws drop and we hear that, you know, that's fine. But I talk about racism and I'm losing my job for it. This was extremely unexpected. I never in a million years thought that this is where I was going to be at with this. I thought I was at a safe place with like-minded people and I got very blindsided very quickly. Thing is I knew I was going to receive horrendous things from people. Not exactly the people I expected, but here we are. If you know me, you know that I hate asking for help. I do not ever ask for help until it's dire and extremely necessary. So I'm going to ask my followers right now, please go to my profile. My Venmo is right there. Anything you can help with right now, I would be greatly appreciative. She made sure to fire me before she had to pay me for my vacation time also. So that's what a wonderful, sweet thing for somebody to do to a single mom, you know. I am asking for help for the first time in my life. Anything at all would be very helpful. I have been through so many things in my life. My sister literally died because of racism, and I will not sit back and be quiet. I will not allow horrendous behavior to go on. I will not be around people that will be complicit to it. As far as I'm concerned, thank you for firing me. This is just going to take me to a better place and going to take me to exactly where I belong. And I'm going to be doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do.
By the way, this woman has confirmed in my DMs that this was in Missouri that she got fired. Missouri's a red state. Does that surprise you? That explains a lot even more. This is her Instagram. This is her GoFundMe. Right, if you want to show some love, you know, send her messages and all that stuff. And I even said to her, if she was using Trump, if she was using Charlie Kirk type talking points on black people, I guarantee they would never fire her. And I'm willing to bet her old boss voted for Trump.
White women asking if they can join the Black Panthers is because they don't trust whiteness either. Because instead of doing the hard work, the uncomfortable work of organizing their own people, they want to attach themselves to black movements that have been in existence long before they realized that the country was on fire. That's not solidarity. That's outsourcing responsibility. Because the Black Panthers are not a costume. It's not some little club that you can apply to when fascism gets too loud and scary for y'all. The Black Panthers were a response, a direct response to white violence in America. It was a response to white law enforcement, white supremacy, and state neglect. The Black Panthers fed children when the state starved them. The Black Panthers armed themselves because they were being hunted by the law. They built community for black people because white America kept burning it down. Because if you don't trust your own white communities enough to organize and build movements with them, why should black people trust you to come into ours? Mistrust doesn't just magically disappear when you cross racial lines. If anything, it deepens. And just so y'all know, black spaces are not rehab centers for whiteness. We are not here to absolve you or absorb your guilt, your fear, or your political awakening. Why aren't y'all out here creating white-led community accountability circles where y'all actually face and deconstruct your racism and anti-blackness? Why ain't y'all building community patrols that stop white men from becoming threats? Why don't y'all organize against white supremacists where the white supremacists actually live? Like next door to y'all. It's like blackness for y'all has always been a moral shortcut. Y'all attach yourselves to it and y'all feel you're absolved of sins. Y'all stand next to blackness and suddenly you feel brave. But I'm sorry, liberation don't work like that. Real allyship, it's not glamorous, it's not an aesthetic, it doesn't get thank yous, it's not done for the gram or for the... And it happens away from black people, not in front of us. And the Black Panthers didn't ask white people to join. They asked them to fix their own house. If your house is on fire, you don't go and move in with your neighbor's house. You put that fire out. That is the work we need y'all to do. Take care of your house. Your house is on fire, and that fire is affecting our houses, our neighborhood. So put it out. Why don't y'all want to be in community with each other? Because it's a good question.
The Black Lives Matter movement is the defining movement of our time. It's shining a light on issues that the black community has been facing for hundreds of years, and it's changing the way we talk about race in America. That's why last week I briefly considered attending a Black Lives Matter protest. I remember thinking for a few minutes about going to a rally downtown. I even saw someone else share the Facebook event for it, and I RSVP'd as a maybe. I knew it was really important to consider going to something that would change the world for the better before deciding it wasn't going to pan out for me that week. Work's just been crazy lately. I took a lot of time to truly reflect on why it would be a good thing for me to show my support for the cause. I went as far as texting a friend about it. It felt really cathartic and really positive to talk about maybe meeting somewhere before the rally. Felt even better telling someone that I planned on going. The livelihood of BLM goes beyond the rallies, too. That's why I decided to sit down and budget a monthly donation. But then I got distracted by something. I don't remember what it was, though. For Black Lives Matter to make a sustainable difference, it'll be up to everyone, not just one group of people, to throw their support behind the movement. Go on Facebook. Post an article about an upcoming rally. Tag your friends. Leave a few articles about the movement open in some tabs on your browser before forgetting you open them and eventually closing them out. Make plans now that you'll bail on later. It's the least we can do. Plus, there will always be another demonstration. I'm pretty sure these things happen all the time.
Is America a systemically racist country? 100% yes. And I never understand when the right balks at this. We tell you that the government is corrupt, that it is evil. Why do we try to push back when people say it's racist? We had institutionalized slavery in this country, followed by Jim Crow, that entrenched laws upon laws upon laws. Does that mean everybody working in our government is currently racist? No. Does that mean we still have laws on the books that were put there with racist intent or that have racially disproportionate outcomes? 100% yes. Look at the public school system, where we had redlining that determined where people lived based on their zip codes and their skin color for decades. And that now determines how much money goes to their public schools. And this is why you see black kids trapped in cycles of poverty in our government schools for decades and decades and decades. That's why we need school choice. These arguments support our policies that we're pushing for because we actually want to see all communities lifted up. Look at the criminal justice system. You have 95 million traffic stops that were looked at between 2011 and 2018 across 56 different police agencies. And they found that black people were more than 2 times likely to be pulled over. That disparity lessened at night when cops couldn't see them. They were more likely to be searched than white people, more likely to be caught with drugs, even though white people do drugs at similar levels. Black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by police. They're 3.5 times more likely to be arrested for pot, despite both races using those drugs at similar rates. They get 20% longer sentences for the same crimes. When we look at this is a 2017 U.S. Sentencing Commission. When it comes to gun crimes, gun laws were put into place to explicitly block black people from being able to access their rights to self-defense in this country, and boy, do they still work to this day. Black people are far more likely to be charged with gun crimes. They are more likely to be arrested and sentenced for longer time periods when they are caught. As a whole, there are still so many areas across this country where we are continuing to see the government harm people of color at disproportionate rates. And what that should tell you is that we need to limit this freaking government and get it out of people's ways and quit giving it the power to do this to people. That's the end game.
The FBI has taken my case seriously, but the local police department in New York City did not. Cops came over and took a report from me because I had what I believed to be credible threats on my life, including my location. And the male cop showed up. It was two. It was him and his female partner. And he said, well, you're a public figure. Isn't this kind of stuff going to happen every week? Are we going to have to come every week? What kind of content do you post? It's very polarizing, isn't it? And then they spent 10 minutes, I swear to God, scrolling through each one of my videos and reading the comments on it and seeing what people's reactions were. And then they left, gave me their business card and said, just go on about your day-to-day life, despite the fact that I was getting credible threats on my location. And they did not believe me when I said that I haven't posted my address online. They were like, you probably accidentally posted your address online somewhere. Point being, it was fucking disgusting, and a lot of cops are incredibly conservative, even in big cities like New York. The way that I was treated and discarded with actual threats to me and made me feel physically unsafe was genuinely repulsive. And that's what happens in conservative minds. When you align yourself too closely with the left, they stop having sympathy for you. They start to literally see you as subhuman in a way, or at least that's how it felt, the way that I was being treated.
You want to talk about reparations? We pay reparations. What do you mean you want reparations? Our taxpayer dollars, which are mostly white people paying that, goes to, what is it? Affordable housing, government programs, EBT, scholarships, DEI, you guys getting jobs. Holy shit. Let's take all that, factor in the theft, factor in the crime, factor it in the murders, and then we'll talk about reparations on this show. How about that? You probably won't like that, will you? Because you're not going to like the numbers. But we are all, frankly, exhausted.
Okay, so let's start here. Your entire rant was rooted in racist stereotypes, emotional talking points, and misinformation, not facts. Because saying Black Americans already receive reparations through EBT, affordable housing, DEI, scholarships, and government programs is not only racially offensive, it's intellectually dishonest. But honestly, I'm not even surprised. Because at its core, racism is born of ignorance. An ignorance of history, an ignorance of systems, an ignorance of the very advantages people mistake for superiority. And in your ignorance, you actually seem proud while repeating those talking points. Like putting Black people down somehow gives you this strange sense of superiority. But I'm not here to protect your comfort, because what you completely ignored is who those programs primarily benefit and why many of them were created in the first place. You also simply skipped over that for some of those programs, Black people weren't even eligible when they were created. White Americans make up the largest raw number of recipients in those very programs that you mentioned. Those programs were not created exclusively for Black people. They were created for Americans. But you painted them like some secret pipeline of wealth flowing only to Black communities. Meanwhile, if we're actually following the money, your community still overwhelmingly holds the largest share of wealth, land ownership, inherited assets, corporate control, and political influence in this country. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because your ancestors were allowed to build wealth uninterrupted for generations. Through land ownership, subsidized home ownership, business access, voting rights, legal protections, and government-backed opportunities. While Black Americans, on the other hand, were enslaved, then segregated, then redlined, and then excluded from loans, neighborhoods, schools, contracts, and wealth-building opportunities by law and policy. So no, history didn't just magically disappear because the calendar changed. And DEI is not some magical free Black jobs program either. DEI exists because this country actually spent generations excluding qualified people from jobs, universities, housing, contracts, and opportunities based on race and gender alone. Ironically, you white women have statistically benefited from diversity and affirmative action efforts more than any other group in this country. But suddenly, when Black Americans benefit just a little bit from inclusion, people like you call it unfair. Many of you actually vote against your own interests just to preserve your entitlement to privilege, but then claim that privilege doesn't exist. Interesting, isn't it? And where were voices like yours when Black veterans came home from serving this country, only to be denied many of the same housing and educational opportunities that helped build the white middle class? Where were you when banks literally drew red lines around Black neighborhoods and denied loans to qualified Black families? Where were you when Black Americans were legally locked out of competition altogether? You see, while your parents and your grandparents were often free to build wealth, buy property, move wherever they wanted, and accumulate security, many Black families were surviving Jim Crow, racial terror, voter suppression, and legalized discrimination. And yes, those systems were strongly enforced under American law. Now let's address your crime narrative, because every time any subject about race or Black people comes up, someone tries to weaponize crime statistics while ignoring the very conditions that produce crime in the first place. We all know that poverty and crime correlate across every racial group. When communities are historically underfunded, segregated, denied investment, over-policed, and blocked from wealth-building opportunities for generations, social outcomes suffer. That is not a Black defect. That is what inequality produces. And finally, your stupid idea that only white people pay for America is one of the most arrogant, historically ignorant narratives imaginable. Black Americans work. We pay taxes. We serve in the military. And we build businesses. We also contribute to Social Security, Medicare, payroll taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, and federal taxes, just like every other citizen. But you already know that. So this conversation is not about begging anyone for anything. It's about whether America is mature enough to honestly confront the long-term damage created by its own policies, instead of hiding behind foolish stereotypes every time accountability enters the room. That is the real conversation. Let me know when you're ready to have it.
Thank you for staying tuned and thank you for watching those amazing clips. What actually happened was a white woman who exposes the white police agenda for Black when they start protesting and of protesting. The white woman emphasized that there is no equality treatment in how the white police treats people of other race. She made emphasize that they treat the white with fear and care. Why they don't treat the Black when they protest when they protest peacefully without fear? They treat them as if they are not human. There is no equality in the treatment, and that is what is actually circulating online now. The base, regardless of your skin, regardless of your gender, everyone deserves to be treated with fear and care. What is your own opinion about this? Drop your thought in the comment section and let's dive more into more insight about this. Thank you.